Hello and welcome back to the Rugby League Hub podcast, a weekly podcast in which we discuss the goings-on in the rugby league world. Joining me in the studio today, as always, is Ross Williams. How are we doing?
Not too bad, mate. How are you?
I'm alright, thank you. We'll start today off with a few more headlines from the world and then jump back into our previews of the Super League teams. Today we've got Hull FC, Leeds, Salford and St Helens coming up. But first of all, in the headlines, probably one of the biggest ones of the week is a maybe introduction of a players' union led by Gareth Carvell. A positive sign for the players. What's your opinions of this?
Yeah, I certainly don't think it can be a bad thing. By the sounds of it, Carvell has been going into a few clubs and he's had some pretty positive uptake from the players. It seems like quite a good buy-in. I think it's great. I think any help the players can get. You know, at the end of the day, these, as much as we might see them as superstars, they're really not in terms of wage brackets. You know what I mean? They're not earning any more than the average man on the street, a lot of them. So, every help they can get, I'm happy with it.
I think doing just a bit of reading on it beforehand, and I think it's absolutely ludicrous that at the moment players don't have any input whatsoever regarding even rule changes. You know, it's not, the board don't have to play with these rules.
They don't have a voice, do they?
It's like, it's just stupid saying, oh, you know, you need to play by these rules, it'll help you, and the players go, what if it doesn't? And that isn't fed back across to it who's making the decisions, really. And I think, you know, we've tried it in the past. John Wilkin tried it and it failed after 3 years. I think, especially now, it seems to be all change with the sport at the moment, sort of thing. I think if we can get a new chief executive in who can sort of work with Carvell, that could be a great opportunity for them too there. Yeah,
I think it's quite a pivotal time. I think it's even more so than when Wilkin brought in League 13. I think this is it's a proper big time for it. And like we've said, we've spoken in length about last week about the uncertainty around the league and whether we don't know necessarily whether there's going to be relegation this year, and you know that's going to play a part. And if players are out of contract this season and they try and negotiate a new contract, if teams are looking at teams towards the bottom end of the league are seeing that they're probably not going to be relegated this year, and therefore they may not necessarily need to finish where they need to be in not normal circumstances, they're not going to be paying players the wages they potentially deserve, and that's when you need a union in there to kind of make sure. That's not fair at the end of the day. It's not the players' fault that there is uncertainty. It's not the players' fault there may not be relegation this season.
Yeah, it could all be shook up quite well, but I think if you compare it to Australia, which is probably a more sophisticated league system, especially with the reserve grade and stuff. We could talk about Sam Tompkins' comments in a bit. But I think it was either last season or the season before in NRL, a few of the players threatened to go on strike because there was changing the way that the payments were, players' wages were going to be made, and a few players spoke up about that, and you know they resolved it with the players, and that it makes sense. You know, if someone's making your game and making you money, make sure they are at the top and giving you the voice that they need.
Yeah, I think with the NRL as well, I think as much as Carvell was a very well-respected guy, and full credit to him for getting this off the ground, massive respect there. I think we do need kind of your top-end players in the league to kind of get on board of it. In the NRL, one of the big things with their Players Association is Cameron Smith was one of the driving forces. And in the NRL in Australia, Cameron Smith speaks, you listen. It's that kind of thing. I think you need your kind of top elite players in Super League to get involved with this. Even though it's not necessarily for them as such. Of course they will get benefits, but obviously the guys who are on 150, 200 grand a year, it's not affecting them as much as it is the guys who are on 30 grand a year. So, but yeah, I think you need these top guys to really have a voice in this.
Yeah, touched on it a little bit there. This week Sam Tompkins come out and said the fact that Super League clubs don't have to have a reserve grade team is basically idiotic and stupid, and I think I agree with him totally there. You know, you look at Australia and we wonder why we're always so far behind. I know this year the World Cup didn't seem that, but in the big image we probably are, because, you know, they're reserve grade, filmed, all games on TV.
Yeah.
Super, you got sponsorships and everything.
Yeah, is it still the Toyota Cup?
Holden/Toyota Cup,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with some teams backing out with the reserve grade, I think it's stupid. What are your thoughts on reserve grade?
Yeah, I think, like I said, at the moment we've got a 19s competition, which, you know, it's a pretty good level. I've seen plenty of 19s games myself, and is a pretty good level. But you look at the fixtures coming out this year, and there's teams like Hull do not have presence in the 19s this season. They've backed out. Like that's obviously it was the City Full Academy. That's both Hull FC and Hull KR, both in Super League now, do not have a presence below their own Super League side this year, which is, with the amount of talent in that area, that is absolutely scandalous, to be fair. And I don't blame them as such, but I think there's a definite calling for a reserve grade. So you look at the 19s, and yes, there is some great talent, but it's such a step up now.
Yeah,
it's such a step up to the main competition. I know they generally go on dual reg and they'll play in Championship, play in League One and stuff like that. But even so, sure, you get a few cases where it does work, but it's only going to be your top players out your 19 competition that are really going to make it. And we get to the point though where we need maybe even the players slightly below that elite level to have that chance to go to the next level. And playing reserve grade could be the catalyst for that. That could be the way in which they can improve. Yeah,
I think it's stupid to say that a player can be 19 and go straight into a Super League side. I think, say with the rare cases,
it does happen.
Some people come in, play 1 or 2 games. Jack Walker last year come in, he looked comfortable in that side, but is that really that saying that unless you're at that elite level, you're forgotten? There could be players who come into their game at 23, 24, but at this point, the game's gone for them. So I think if we have them in a reserve grade and we nurture them more, then they'll come into that potential even sooner, and then we can start building a stronger pool of English players, for me.
100%. If we're going to have a 14-team Super League, at the moment, I do not think we actually have the players for that.
Yeah.
Or certainly the quality. It's just going to be filled with 12 teams worth of maybe even realistically 10 or 11 teams of proper Super League standard players, and then a few teams built with kind of just Championship caliber players who probably don't necessarily deserve to be at that high level. So yeah, I completely agree. We need that reserve grade, and plus for injured guys who are out for 3-4 months at a time, I mean they don't really have much of a choice. They have to go straight into say you're a Leeds player, for example. You might have 3-4 months out, and your first game back might be Wigan on a Friday night in front of Sky Sports cameras. You know what I mean? It's a tough deal, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's a big time for players and player welfare. We mentioned time and time again. Moving away from that, back into the new publicity of Super League, and a great advert come out this week, introducing the Brownlee brothers to the world of rugby league. What did we make of that wonderful advert?
Right. Getting the Brownlee brothers on board is brilliant. I like that. Obviously, they are Rugby fans themselves, brought up in Leeds fans, and obviously incredible athletes, Olympians, that kind of thing. I love the idea of it. I think the idea of the video, Brownlee brothers in there, the 4 Super League players beating all their personal bests. Haha, very funny. It's great. It's a good idea. But the advert's absolutely terrible. I'm sorry, it's just boring. It really is. And I was excited to see it because I thought it was going to be good. But fair play to the Brownlees. They're triathletes. They're not actors. But you've meant to build the advert around the fact they're probably not the best actors. But let's just focus on something they are good at. And I think the more annoying thing about that is you had the 4 Super League players in there. We had McMeekin from Castleford, Ben Curry from Warrington,
Callum Watkins,
and George Williams. Yeah. So you had your 4 Super League guys there, who I suppose Rugby AM have done pretty well in the last few years. Like they're championing the kind of the personalities of Super League. This didn't champion the personalities of Super League, to be honest, for me. And this is the thing that's going to be on Sky Sports, which most people are going to see. Neither of them spoke. It's a 3.5 minute long video, and not one of them said a word. I mean, sure, it showed off how talented they are, how strong they are, quick they are, that kind of thing. But the Brownlee brothers are not great actors, so let's just give these guys a chance. You know what I mean? But I don't know what you think about it, but
I think it'd been teased for a long time.
Yeah,
you've seen countless, watch out for this advert, and then it come out and everyone just kind of went, oh,
yeah,
is that it?
A bit of a damp squib.
It's a 4-minute. I think there's been better adverts for the game when it's been 4-minute. Them teammate clips where they interview each other.
Yeah, they're great.
Ben Roberts and Jesse Senny.
There's been a few this week, and they've been really good. Yeah,
and I think they're a lot more interesting to watch. I think
massively
with this concept, it's a good idea.
The concept of it is good.
It's just not produced correctly.
No,
in my opinion, you've got 4 players there. Do a 3-minute clip for each player. Get the Brownlee brothers to go against the Super League player.
Yeah.
And show, champion versus champion. That is there's a story there. That
Makes sense,
there's something there, and I think it just could have been handled a lot better than it was, really.
Yeah, like we were saying before the mics went live, and we were just saying in the last few years. I mean, there was the Johnny Vegas one last year, which, like you say, it was gimmicky, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty clever, and it's the kind of thing that went viral. You know what I mean? That's Johnny Vegas. You get a comedian in there, get someone who can genuinely do something like that on camera, and he's good at it. That worked, and that did champion the personalities a little bit. You know, Watkins in a 2-2 and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Just have a bit of a laugh about it. And on a completely different vein, I think 3 or 4 years ago we had Bradley Wiggins on his bike, effectively in a bleak in the Dales somewhere, but that was good because you had the voiceover from Wiggins, champion how great Super League is, and you had I think you had Sam Tompkins, what have you, running after the bike, stuff like that. That worked. It just looked professional. It looked like the kind of thing Sky Sports do for the other sports. This just didn't quite hit the mark for me.
It just looked rushed for me, and even something as simple, I don't remember, I think it was last year when there's that guy from Yorkshire who was just walking through a field and he just had his flat cap on.
The Yorkshire Pros is brilliant.
Yeah, he just spoke about rugby league for 3 minutes, whatever.
I would have much preferred a 30-second clip of Yorkshire Pros talking about rugby league. 100%.
That was a better advert for the game for me than this was, and that's produced on a smartphone by one person walking through a field, not a team of people sat there going, yeah, this is the idea that's going to sell our sport. I think
there's a lot of fans, there's a lot of people in the game who could have probably said the exact same thing.
Yep.
Because we're kind of aware of that. You just wonder if the powers that be are kind of aware of things like that. You know, they are aware of Yorkshire Pros and these guys who could genuinely be a big impact for the game. It begs the question, to be honest.
And speaking of the powers that be, we touched on it a little bit last week, we'll just mention it again. Further comments from Eddie Hearn.
They were interesting, weren't
they? Coming out and basically saying, you know, it's a great sport, just in the wrong hands. Do you think we should be reading into this, or is it just a bit of mind games?
I would love to. I really hope he's legit. I really hope he brought his checkbook. I hope he's at Red Hall right now, signing on the dotted line. But who knows? Eddie Hearn is a promoter first and foremost, and if Eddie Hearn is very good at promoting the darts, the Phil Taylors of the world. He's very good at promoting Anthony Joshua. He's also very good at promoting himself, which is key. And I think this could well be a kind of get eyeballs on me kind of thing. He was completely right in what he said. And he's absolutely spot on. It's just whether he genuinely believes that fresh face could be him. I'm not too sure.
He knows how to create a hype, and I think in what little of a world the rugby league world is, he's done that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, you know, even if it's just a few more eyes on him, searching his sport, it's more money for him at the end of the day. So,
end of the day, he had headlines on the front page of the rugby papers this morning.
Exactly.
So it works, doesn't it?
He's got his name out there. We'll see what comes of that.
Yeah.
But now we'll move back into the previews of the Super League clubs, and kicking it off this week with Hull FC. Relatively successful year for them last year. Another Challenge Cup.
Yeah, they'd have taken the cup run, I think. I think they're certainly taking the cup. I mean, back-to-back cup wins is fantastic for them. I don't think they'd be too unhappy with that at all, to be honest.
I think now, for me, it's time for them to start putting a stamp on the league.
Yes, I would say so.
I think they've made an impact on the league. You know, they've been up there for 2-3 seasons now. But you always look at them and think, can they actually do it? Can they go the whole way?
That's it. I think certainly towards the beginning of the season, or maybe the midpoint, they looked probably the most dangerous side in the league at times. They really were. I mean, even when Castleford were flying high, I mean, Hull beat them 2 or 3 times in the league. You know what I mean? They were probably one of the only teams to really kind of stop them in the tracks just due to their really physical kind of style of play. It just works for them. And but yeah, towards the back end, they do. In the last couple of years now, they have kind of tailed off. You know, I mean, to be fair to them, they got to the semi-finals, didn't they? So they were probably a little bit unfortunate to face a good Leeds side that day. But yeah, it's just getting over that line in the lead for them.
Yeah, and I think they've got a solid setup in the team. You know, Liam Watson, Scott Taylor, 2 big English forwards, and I think they've lost Gareth Ellis and Mahe Fanua, absolutely huge losses for them in my eyes.
Massive.
I think that's going to affect the team greatly. Whether the players they've brought in to replace them can be up to their standards, you don't know. They could be. We could sit here and go, well, wow, they've not missed them at all, but on paper it looks like they're going to be a big miss for me.
Yeah, like I say, and Fanua and Steve Michaels as well, they're going to have to reshape the back line a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Ellis is a massive loss. I think probably just more of a changing room guy as well. I mean, obviously he was knocking on a little bit. Obviously he's retired, but still such a great competitor. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the teammates videos you often see Rugby AM do and Super League done before. Always when the question's asked about the biggest trainer or the guy who lifted the most in the gym and stuff like that, it was still Gareth Ellis despite his age. You know what I mean? Just an absolute animal. One of probably the best British exports when he played at West Tigers as well. He was absolutely outstanding. So, he's going to be a huge loss to them. It'd be interesting to see how they replace.
And I think, obviously, a lot's been made of Mark Sneyd and Albert Kelly's relationship last year in that 6 and 7 role, and he was outstanding. I think Kelly finished with about 15 tries and 19 assists, but this week he's come out and he said he doesn't know where he'll be next year. He's got unfinished business with the NRL. Do you think that could affect his mindset going into this season, or do we think he has managed to put that to next season?
When he was unsettled at OKR, it did affect him.
Yep.
So we shall see. Yeah, Kelly's a bit of an interesting one. He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? So, for Hull's sake, I do hope his head's on it. But if the season's not started yet and he's already looking to the next season, then that might not be the best for them.
Yeah, and I think Radford come out before the start of the season. He said he's not worried about a second season syndrome with Kelly.
He's got to say that, though.
And now Kelly's come out and said this. You know, it sounds confusing from the outside. Obviously, you know, if we was inside, we could probably, if someone spoke to Kelly and they'd be like, oh no, you know, his head's firmly screwed on. Yeah. He's been training brilliantly.
And in fairness to Kelly, you can't really, he's not the only player to have come over here to raise his profile to go back over. The 90% of the Australian and Kiwis do that. So you can't really fault him. But like I say, it just because of the kind of previous OKR when he just went off a cliff a little bit, it's a little bit worrying, that, I'd say.
Yeah, for an FC fan, it would be. I'd keep my eye on that one. And I think that could really dent their season. I think if they lost Ellis, Fanua, as we mentioned, and then Kelly's dropped off a little bit, I think that could hinder them. And it's another team. We expect them to be up there.
Yeah.
We just, in and around that top tier teams, another good cup run. Do we think they'll do anything more this season?
I think they're certainly going to be knocking on the door of the 4. I wouldn't expect them to slide any lower than kind of 5th, to be honest. In terms of the cup, who knows? Maybe the fancy again. It's a toss-up, a Challenge Cup, really, isn't it? So we'll see. I think with Hull, I think they've got the ability. It's just mentality more than anything. Whether they lose a little bit of that with Ellis going, I don't know. But I mean, look at the names: captain and vice captain. They've got Scott Taylor vice and Danny Outman's the captain. I mean, I can't think of a better guy to get it going forward, really. So that might be a little bit of a boost. Obviously, both Hull guys themselves out there, so Hull through and through. I wouldn't call them champions now, but they're going to be in there. They're going to be right in the run, I think. Yeah,
I think it's relatively, minus the 2 big losses we spoke, it's relatively a similar team, and the players that have come in, Mickey Payer, like this kind of slot right into that team, and I think it's same old for all the past 3 years. I think expect it just keep rolling on the machine, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they got further in the competition, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stay where they was.
Almost a bit of a Warrington, I suppose. Kind of, if they carry on the way they are, they could border on that, where they're just kind of, because clearly they're confident, and why shouldn't they be confident?
Yeah.
But yeah, they've just got to kind of prove that they can get over that line, to be honest.
They've showed they can play over the last few years. They just need to show they can play on the days that matter.
Correct.
For me. Move on to the Leeds Rhinos now. And I think it's an exciting time for Leeds for me. I think it's quite a young squad that they're kind of bringing in. You know, you're talking likes of Brad Dwyer and Jordan Lilly looks to be coming and getting his shot. You know, Ashton Golding, Jack Walker fighting for that number 1 spot. Obviously, they've lost Danny Maguire that we spoke about last week and Rob Burrow. They're 2 huge leaders and sort of that team that we knew. You know, there's only probably Ryan Hall left of that elite team, the leading team. What do we make of Leeds this year?
I probably have a decent view on it because I was one of the 3,000 fans who braved the cold yesterday to watch them play Castleford. That was a very, very cold one. And therefore, you could probably say it's quite hard to take too much from that game because the conditions were absolutely abysmal yesterday. But I will say Leeds were just about full strength. I think minus Stevie Ward is still not back from his shoulder injury. They were pretty much full strength. And as you mentioned, Burr and Maguire, obviously the pasture's new for them. For me, they've not replaced them, and I would be a little bit worried. They just, again, it was a tough day at the office for all 26 players, really. But there's just not a great deal of creativity in that side. Joel Moon, for me, is a good player. I don't think he's your standoff, to be honest. I think he's a very good centre. I just personally have not seen Joel Moon as a real... Because they're going to need that creativity. I'm not sure he provides it at 6. And Richie Miles come in. And the thing with Maguire last year, Maguire was kind of your general. He was the guy driving you around the park. He was the man talking. I didn't see that from Milo yesterday, to be honest. I know it's early days. I know it's only January, but it's all we've got to go off at the moment. So, they're a champion side. They are current reigning champions, but I would not be expecting quite the same season from them this year.
No, in my opinion, as you said, Joel Moon, I think he's an excellent runner of the ball.
Yes, I agree with that.
He possesses everything for a great centre, but when he was in the centres, he struggled a bit before he moved to 6, and I think with Maguire there last year to kind of take the pressure off his shoulders and let him just play, it worked for him. I think this year you're looking at...
I think it might be a little bit too much for Moon at 6 this year.
Yeah, I think...
Which, to be fair, they do have Jordan Lilly, and if Lilly can come in and put his stamp on it, then I'm happy with that.
I was going to say, if Jordan Lilly can come in, it's a huge amount of pressure on him as a youngster to play that Maguire role and take the pressure off a more senior player. If you can do that at such a young age, Leeds have got a 7 for the next 10 years. But it remains to be seen. We spoke about Richie Milo being a moments player at Catalans.
Yeah, we mentioned him last week in the Catalan preview, didn't we? He's just, like I said last week, he's kind of coasted a little bit, and it's just whether he's just lost that kind of spark which he had a few years ago when he was at Warrington. It looked like he was going to be England's standoff going forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see whether it's a new wave of the Leeds attack and they're just going to throw caution to the wind and go attack, and just play off the cuff. Because if you look at the 6 and 7 of Moon and Myler, that's what it suggests to me. It's off the cuff, offloads, chips over the top. It's what they're most used to. Whereas with Maguire, it's a bit more structured, out the back, Moon with a little step and go.
I think my key for Leeds is if Leeds are going to be properly around that top 4 and a real force at the end of the season, it's going to be down to probably 2 men. Cuthbertson's got to have another good year, and I'm sure he will. If he's not the Super League's best prop, he's certainly in the top 3. Yeah. But I think if Leeds are going to be around that, Matt Parcell is going to have a Man of Steel-esque season. I think Matt Parcell is absolutely massive for them this year. In the absence of Maguire, he's going to have to be the main man, I think, because I didn't see enough from Moon and Mile yesterday to suggest otherwise. If we get to September, October, we get to the Super League dinner, and they're saying Parcell is your odds-on favourite for Man of Steel, then I think Leeds have got a chance. But it's a lot of pressure on him, but I think he's going to have an absolutely fantastic year for them.
Do you think then Parcell will have to change up his game from last season? Because last season he scored about, I think it was 16 tries or whatever. And he was very much he was on the back of the moves from Maguire, and he was always that support player breaking quick. Do you think he's going to have to change that game and lessen that to become more of a leader in that forward pack?
I would say so. I think possibly. I think he's got to be a go forward. He really does have to be. And even if it was even mentioned yesterday, maybe even a change of position for him. They've brought in a guy like Dwyer who can play 9. Yeah. If the half-back partnership isn't working, maybe you put Parcell at 7. Even something like that. That'd be a massive, massive call. But yeah, he's by far and away for me their best player at the moment, and he's going to be key.
And they've changed it up with Callum Watkins getting the captaincy for this year, and he's one of the more senior players in that squad. One of the most talented players in that squad.
He's been around longer than people think, to be honest.
Yeah,
because he just seems like this young kid.
He's been around from a very young age, and I think 2 years ago he kind of went missing a little bit. Last year came back fine form, had a great World Cup. Yeah. Do you think he can provide that leadership from a captaincy role that not the likes of Maguire have, because they've got years of experience on him, but how do you think he'll cope with that?
It's tough to say. I think, especially with a guy like in this, when you name a centre or a wing or something like that, I don't think it's so much kind of on the field stuff. I think that's generally more on the training field when you're back in the sheds at half time. Speaking as a Castleford fan, we've got Michael Shenton at half time, probably not the most animated on the field, but everyone who speaks about him says he's a fantastic leader. So even though you might not see it as such, it works for Shenny, and I'm sure Watkins is, like I say, he's been around some great teams. He's been involved in the treble winning side and all that kind of thing. But also, like I say, he's been in that England setup, so he's not short on experience. He's not going to be afraid. So we might not see too much of it when the Sky cameras are on, but I think the impact he's going to have is still going to be there.
I think for me, with Watkins being the captain, I think, as you mentioned, Cuthbertson and probably Stevie Ward when he comes back in.
I was a little bit surprised Stevie Ward didn't get the nod, actually.
I voted for Stevie Ward. There was a poll on Twitter, who do we think should get it? I said Stevie Ward. I said, sort of Sinfield-esque, not in the way he plays, but...
Yeah, he's a different kind of player, but...
Leading from 13.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's ideal for me. You've seen the likes of Sean O'Loughlin, Sculthorpe leading there. And I think Ward, when he comes back into the side, and Cuthbertson are going to have a big impact, being, two prominent players in the middle of the pitch, leading that squad. And I think if them two can manage that, then Watkins, as you said, in the sheds, we don't see the personality. We didn't see the personality in the advert.
We did not see him. We did not. That's a very good point.
But I think if them two can sort of take on a bit of that leadership as well, then I think it should be another fine season for Leeds. I think they've just got to worry about getting that 6-7 in that number one spot right for me as well, to be honest.
I think as well, just the last thing on the Watkins captaincy thing, end of the day, this is a McDermott choice. McDermott knows what a captain is. Yeah. He's had some of the very best, so if you're going to get Brian McDermott's approval, then that probably is enough for everyone else, to be honest.
Yeah. And just a quick prediction, sort of, where do we think Leeds are going to go this season? Another championship winning side, or...?
I would say, just because I think a lot of the competition has improved around them, and I'm not necessarily sure they have improved too much. I don't think they'll be as high as second again in the league. Yeah, I think they're going to be similar to Hull, to be honest. I think knocking on the door of the 4, around 4th, 5th for me. Just because we'll go on to, we're going to pick for us full standings, and they're probably next week. I've got a decent idea of what I think now, and I reckon Leeds probably about 4th or 5th. In terms of the cup, who knows? Again, it's a bit of a toss-up. They're a good enough side to win the Challenge Cup for me. So,
yeah, I think at this stage, we've only had 1 or 2 pre-season friendlies. It is a very tough judgment at the moment. I think I'd probably back you with the Leeds, probably not to be in the first, second at the moment for me, but I don't think they'll be in any struggle. I think they'll be knocking around that top 5, 6 for me. I think.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be a season like 2016 where they're going to be down the bottom. No.
I just think there's a very strong 5 or 6 teams this year, or there should be a very strong 5 or 6 teams, and it should make for an interesting league for me this year. Move from the top end more towards the bottom end now, and it's the Salford Red Devils. Big change for them off the field. Started on absolute fire last year, faded massively towards the end, and it's been really another swap and change of the squad like we've seen for the past 3 or 4 years. A lot of players coming in, a lot of players coming out, a lot of players that come in sort of mid-season last year have left the club as well. What do you make of the transfer business of, they've let go Todd Carney, Michael Dobson's been released, the big one, Ben Murdoch-Masila to Warrington. Yeah. Huge loss.
Massive. And a huge game for Warrington, I think. We'll come on to that next week. I think a lot of the good things they did in the first half of that season came from Ben Murdoch-Masila, and not necessarily what he did with the ball in hand, just his presence there. He was drawing 2 or 3 defenders at a time because there was that much hype about him, and quite rightly. And to be honest, at times last season, Murdoch-Masila didn't even look in the best shape, and he was still doing that. You looked at him for playing for PNG in the World Cup, and he did look in great shape, and he played outstanding. If Warrington can get that player, then sky's the limit really for him. It's obviously a turnover in the half a little bit. Carney's gone, Dobson's gone. Dobson's a big loss, I think, for me, more so than Carney, I'd say. Yeah. Carney's he's never really cracked on, has he, to be honest?
No, I think Carney's still... Everyone, including Todd Carney, is still looking for Dally M, Todd Carney, to come back, and I don't think that player's ever going to come back for me.
Pardon the pun, but Todd Carney got kind of flushed down the toilet a little bit, didn't he? A few years ago. Since that, well-documented incident. He's just not been the same guy, has he? Let's be honest.
No, I think that's played a lot on his career, and I think, as you said, Dobson is a big loss. I think he's a general, whereas Carney was more of that maverick playmaker.
Yeah, he was a good foil for him, wasn't he?
Always looking for that, and I think letting go of Dobson, it's, we don't know what's gone on, but it's a big loss for me, and I think they'll struggle to sort of fill that gap.
I think one of the big things for Salford as well this season, just how they cope, not necessarily on the field, but off the field. You mentioned a big change. Obviously, Malcolm Kukash has let go of the club. They're now in control of a trust, sports trust, run by a few local businessmen and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It does appear that Kukash is still going to be involved in some capacity. I know he had all the players and the families around his house the other day. That's a massive house, by the way. They're all on the stairs. Like, how many people get on the stairs? Must be about 50 people there. Probably get about 8 people on my stairs.
Yeah,
max. Yeah, but yeah, the thing with Salford, I think the problem that's been there for 5-6 years, or throughout the time Kukash was there, they just don't get the crowd. They really don't get the crowd, and money is the main opponent of Salford, I think, at the moment. So we don't know how much money Kukash has bankrolled into that club, but we assume it's a lot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talks of Kukash saying, forget the debt that you owe me and stuff like that. Obviously,
yeah. I don't think it's so much that though. I think that's all well and good, but it's the money they're going to need in the future.
Yeah, I think all the off-field talk, really, we're just sort of guessing and seeing what's going on at the moment. But I think back focusing on the pitch, a lot of Salford's success this year, it's probably gonna fall to Jack Littlejohn. I think he's come in there's always been a little bit of hype around him in the NRL, sort of like Matt Parcell in a way. A lot of people sort of looked at him and went, well, he could do it, he's just not.
Yeah.
And I think if he can come, get his head down, play rugby, then he could be a big influence for this Salford side. But outside of him, you're looking at the Salford side and you think, is it going to be the same old season? Start good, have a few decent games, and then just fade away towards the end of the season.
Like I said, you do wonder last season, because it was still the same players at the end of the season as they started it. You do wonder whether it were a mentality thing, because I've mentioned it before, but the turning point for me was the Challenge Cup game when they played Wigan on the Sunday, I think it was. It was the quarterfinals? Or was it the semis? Regardless, in the Challenge Cup, I think it was
those
semi-finals actually. But yeah, they was pretty much right in the game at half time, or up until pretty much the hour mark against Wigan, and they just couldn't quite get over the line that day with a massive chance to get the first trip to Wembley for God knows how many years. I think they went on a run of losing about 12-13 games after that. It just completely I think they probably put so much energy into that game. It just seemed to completely drain them, and you watched them in the weeks following, and it was just a completely different side. It was the same personnel, but different guys. So they've really got to sort that mentality issue, and otherwise, again, if they have a few losses early doors, which they could do really, if you look at the personnel in the park, their head's going to go down. And to be honest, it's the reason why last week I predicted them to come in the bottom 2, because I don't know where that spark's going to come from, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you look at the squad and it is probably lacking a little bit these days, and I don't know if I go as far as saying bottom 2, but then again,
it's not so much a knock against Salford. I think it's more of a increase in the rest of the teams. I think the quality is going to go up this year, so it's not so much Salford are absolutely terrible. It's not that. It's just a lot of the teams have improved.
Yeah, I think you look at the sides around them, and you would probably pick out Salford and Widnes as probably the 2 underdogs for the season. Not really gained either, and I think Salford, as you said, it's probably a case similar to Huddersfield. If they start off well, who knows? But if they start off bad and then the mentality goes again,
it could snowball
at the start of the season, then they could be in a lot of trouble. And I think you're looking at your more senior players, such as Rob Louis, who had an outstanding first half of the season, step up again. Step up for a full season.
And not so much senior player, but Gareth O'Brien as well.
Yeah.
He had a very good start to the season, and he's kind of got, especially with Dobson kind of going, he's got to kind of take the Bulls by the arm a little bit this year, I think. When, as you said, at the start of last season, he was at fullback and he had an absolute blinding start, lightning start, and I think you're looking for them 1 or 2 individual players to really bring this team up, and for me that's probably been Salford's downfall the past couple of years. We've spoke about the recruitment, a lot of players in, a lot of players out.
it doesn't really work for me. I think bringing in, like the experiments with sort of Kevin Locke, throwing money at him, individual player, didn't fit the team really, kind of shoehorned him in at fullback, and that didn't work out. All right, next one, he didn't work out. Next one, I think, for me, Salford, get a regular team, get a solid team, and then you'll start to climb up the table for me.
And I think that may just happen, to be fair, because like I say, we mentioned Kukash leaving. I think a lot of those signings, I think, were certainly nudged in the right direction by Marwan in the hope of this. Well, obviously he's champions the marquee player for so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He want that superstar. That's what he thought was going to make Salford successful. This superstar player, it never came off, and it to their detriment. Really, they signed these players. So I think you're quite right. If they just keep a squad of 17 roughly around the same, and don't be making these mid-season signings of these kind of washed-up Australian players, it doesn't work. Yeah. So they need to really stop doing that.
Yeah, interesting one for Salford. I think I'd imagine if I was going to predict now, they will be around that bottom end of the table. But, there's always been the promise of them rising, but I can't see it this season for me.
No, not me either.
And we'll finish it off today with a team that is certain to be at the top of the league, predicted by Gary Schofield in the League Express to be champions.
There you go.
So it's definitely going to work out.
Why is anyone playing?
Just give us the trophy now. It's St Helens. What do we make of the season, last season, and coming up for this one?
First off, I'll just start with saying Gary Schofield also said that London are not going to make the top 10 in the Championship. So take that with a pinch of salt, will you? Also, I really hope Michael Channing wins that bet. It'd be nice to take some money off him.
A lot of money.
Yeah. So, Saints. In fairness, I do think Saints can be right up there this year. The main thing that gets my attention now, we're now looking at the four sides which we've analysed today, the ins and outs, and Saints have one in, and that is it. They've not lost a single player, and when you look at the way they finished last season, that's not a bad thing because that looks like some side.
Yeah, I think we lost a few players sort of mid-season last year. Greg Richards, Matty Fleming, stuff going to Lee and other places like that. And I think they was fringe players.
Yeah,
they was Kieran Cunningham's players. There's a lot of rumbling about some of the squad, and Holbrook's coming in. He's transformed a few players. I think Dominic Peyru is probably the biggest example of that.
Yeah.
Before Holbrook come in, he didn't look like a player. He didn't look like he belonged in that side, and he turned him into a strong ball running second rower. And I think just Holbrook's brought a belief in the players, and he's made a lot of community decisions in the pre-season. Obviously being invested in the club, I've followed it more, and they've hosted open training sessions, and it's been a lot more sort of like team focused. We've had trips away, and I think it's an exciting time. It's a young squad.
Yeah, it's a very young squad.
You're talking Mark Percival's one of the standout players and the senior players in the squad, alongside the likes of Theo Farge, and they're still young.
It's got to the point where John Wilkin is a real kind of outlier, isn't he? Yeah. It really is, and he's just holding on and he's clean on.
And I think you look around the squad, and Reagan Grace coming and made a blinding start to his career. You've got Mark Percival, Alex Walmsley, Ben Barber.
Yep.
If he has a season like he can do, he could take this team to wherever. Like, the sky's the limit for this team in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I always look back at that semi-final, and I think on a different day St Helens win that. And to be honest, with the way St Helens are playing, I think there's every chance they beat Leeds in the final as well.
Yeah,
I really do think that. So they're going to be right amongst it. Like you say, it's a young side, it's an exciting side, and I think the main thing is Holbrook is a very, very good coach. I think that's been proven. It's a shame what happened with Cunningham because he's such a club legend. I think he got a statue outside the ground and that kind of thing. He's such a legend, but not everyone's cut out for it. They're really not. And the way he was playing, it was just. I mean, you watched him early doors in the season. It was just like, this is not St Helens. It
was just droning on, and Holbrook brought back that freedom that you thought of 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. When you've got players like Ben Barber in the time, why would you not play a little bit more off the cuff? I mean, he's just. What?
You need to let them go, and I think for me the big thing this year is the halves.
Yeah.
I think you look at, we've got Matty Smith, Theo Farge, who were the established ones last year. Danny Rich come in and made that spot really his own. You know, when Matty Smith come back in, he dropped down to the bench and came back in, and he looked exciting. And we've only played one pre-season game so far, and I think 64-6 against Sheffield it was at the weekend.
Yep.
And Matty Smith lined up at 9, which is interesting for me.
Interesting.
Because James Roby isn't getting any younger.
No, He
had a superb season last year, but...
How old are we talking? At least
30...
33, 34, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And, you know, we'd spell Tommy Lee at 9, spell other players sort of in and around that. Morgan Knowles went in there. And I think if we have Matty Smith either starting at 7 with Danny Rich on the bench, Danny Rich on bit of firepower, bit of, you know, a moment's player to come and spark up a game, move Smith to 9, give Roby a rest. I think that could really be a spell for success in that middle.
Yeah, Roby's outstanding. He's been one of, I mean, there's an argument that he's been the best Super League player of the last 10 years. Like, he's certainly in the top 3, top 5 players. But yeah, you can't imagine what you play a full season now. You get to finals. We're talking nearly 40 games. Yeah. He's not going to do 80 minutes every game, surely. I mean, I know he's a cardio freak and he's just so fit. But
if there's anyone with an engine to do it, it's him.
If there's anyone going to do it, it is him. But that is some task. And even if he could do the 80 minutes, whether he can do that to his 100%, I mean, that would be genuinely something. That would be Man of Steel material. So, yeah, it's interesting. Matty Smith at 9. I'd not really thought about it until you brought it up, but could work.
No, it's a headache you'd want to have as a coach.
Yeah, I think you'd imagine, just based on previous seasons, that Theo Farge would be your 9. Really is more kind of suited to the role, just because he played there at Catalan and things like that. But yeah, that's interesting, Smith.
And another one is obviously Lomax versus Barber, fitting them two in.
Yeah, again, it's not a bad problem to have.
No, it's the squad depth this season for me. And it sounds weird saying we've only made one signing, but the squad depth is far better.
Not losing players is massive.
And a lot has been made of this in the media, keeping that same side.
Yeah,
we've said it about Cass, we've said it about Hull, and we say it about Saints. Keeping that same side. You know, we're talking the 3 sides that played some of the best rugby towards the end of last season, and keeping that side, you know, keeping what momentum in that. I know there's been a whole off season in the middle of it, but keeping that side could be a tremendous asset for all 3 of them.
At the end of the day, you look at Cass, Hull, St Helens, that's 3 semi-finalists there.
Yeah.
Which says it all, really. And obviously Leeds were in there as well, but like I say, Leeds haven't quite kept that. So whether that is the spot where another team's going to come in, Warrington, maybe. We'll talk about more next week.
I think, just touching on Warrington, I think, you know, it's always their year.
Yeah.
But a lot more of that has been made this year. But a lot more was made of it's always their year a couple of seasons ago when Chris Sandow was in. You know, when he joined in the off-season, the season after that, a lot was made then. So it remains to be seen what can happen with that Warrington squad. As far as St Helens are concerned, an early prediction for the whereabouts, I think obviously up there is a statement.
At this point, it's very early. We're talking mid-January. We don't really know. Obviously, I've not seen St Helens play live yet, so I won't know. I think we'll get a very good indication week 1.
Yeah, very good indication.
A repeat of the semi-final, that's going to be absolutely massive on the Friday night. And you know, if we can build a little bit of the hype towards Super League, preferably with a better advert.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, I mean,
cough, cough.
Leeds Warrington's a great game, but I think St Helens Cass on the Friday, if you're going to bring some fans in at entry level, that is that is one to watch. Yes, that's going to be a pretty good indicator. But for me, I mean, St Helens Castleford, you're probably looking at, right now, I think the top 2, in my opinion. Again, Warrington's going to be right up there, but as of right now, St Helens, I would say they're a top 2 side.
Yeah, and you know, as a fan, I'd love to be that confident one. And you know, I've spoke about how great the players are and how great we're going to play so far
every single week.
But for me, I'm not too sure as of yet.
Ooh.
I think
you've surprised me. You know,
I think last year we shown we can defend and we can at times show some immense attack. But we've yet to see a full season under Holbrook.
That is true. That's true.
And as great as a coach as he's been so far, I think he came into a squad that was sort of dead. He breathed life back into that. And, you know, you can say, oh, it's a new coach. And then you can say, oh, well, you get 1 or 2 results, you get the confidence up, you get a big player in like Barber. You know, you get a few youngsters in that want to play and have the taste for the game and the hunger. And that could be the same for next season. We could be sat here this time next year going, wow, they played that same rugby all the way through. We could be here saying, well, they tried to, and then they faded off. It's all ifs and buts. For me, I'd say top 4 is a minimum requirement. We need to be getting that. We can't afford to be sort of struggling below that 4th and being like, will we get it, will we won't. As far as a cut run's concerned, you know, I think it'd be great for the club and great for the fans, as it always is, to get one.
I think maybe the key for St Helens is just like making that ground a fortress.
Yeah,
that is one of the things. Yeah, I mean it's got better and better, but I think you've been in there 5-6 years now, and Knowsley Road really was.
Yeah,
it was a very, very difficult place to go. Teams just couldn't win there sometimes. I think the ground is starting to get that, and I think that is going to be the big key, winning kind of 75% of the home games. To be honest, I've just kind of said this so I can say the totally wicked stadium. It's quite funny, but no. But in all seriousness, I think
par with the Mobile Rocket Stadium now.
The Mobile,
thanks Wakefield.
There is some fantastic. I mean, obviously, the Menderhose jungle is quite something, but they're getting better and better. These just keep them coming. These businesses just doing it for the laugh, aren't they? Just like
what worst name can we come up with next?
There's some corkers, isn't there?
But I
do enjoy the totally wicked stadium.
As you said, I think Knowsley Road, there was an atmosphere around that ground.
Yeah, scary place to go. Yeah.
And we never really had the same with Langtree Park.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of even the fans have made note of it, being like, you know, it's lacking. You go there, and you know, if the team's not performing, it's been like a ghost town.
I think it's one of them grounds where you're only ever going to really get a proper atmosphere, just because the way it's laid out or designed, when it is absolutely
for
full,
the big games,
when it is packed. And obviously, in today's day and age, you don't really back it. You might back it out twice a season, 2 or 3 times a season.
Yeah.
So when you're playing your Huddersfield on a Thursday night, when they're bringing 200 away fans, it's not going to happen, is it? So it's a shame because it's a great ground, but yeah, atmosphere. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but fans really can give that team that boost. So
and I think there's a lot more hype around the side this year than last, and hopefully the atmosphere can grow as hopefully the club grows and goes on to win the Super League. And that is our predictions done. Yep, Ross has agreed that Saints are going to win the league.
I did that without opening my mouth. That was quite impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, the cup as well. Oh, okay. Yeah,
and the cup, yeah. It's all sorted.
Sure, yeah.
That's all we have time for this week. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week, the same time, to finish off the predictions. I think we got Warrington, Wigan, Widnes, and give me the last one. There we go, Wakefield. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for joining me today, Ross.
Pleasure.
I'll see you all next week.